Jorge Ventura. He's a field reporter for the Daily Caller. And he has been down most recently in El Paso. In a moment, I'll play the interview that we did today. He also has been working on some documentaries, some investigative documentaries about the impact of what's happening on the southern border. One of the most recent ones is called Narcofornia, and here is a trailer for that.
You have to understand our frustration that we have been going through this for years. Did you know that one of our citizens got attacked on her property walking her dog by one of the pot growers' dogs? So when a stray bullet comes and hits one of my children or me, I swear to God, on a stack of Bibles, I will go out and I will.
Yeah, you can take marijuana, you can take water regulation, let's go down the line.
We have no allies in the state government.
Is there a rough estimate of how many cartel members are here right now?
Conservative estimate, 10,000.
10,000
Yeah,
people?
I'd say conservative estimate.
Just California?
Just in California.
These are organized crime groups, highly structured, well-funded, very aggressive, well-armed, in our forest all over California.
They interviewed one of our sheriff deputies, head rats, and he just said, we don't have enough resources to stop them if they ever come here. And then, bam, they were here.
All of a sudden, you had 1,000 people show up who wanted to vote, who all came from out of the area, who all just happened to be growing illegal marijuana. It was kind of like, well...
And it blew up.
As the enforcement started to dwindle, they rapidly increased.
I want some sort of acknowledgement that it's a problem. I have yet to even hear that.
They are racist.
Who?
The county.
So I spoke with Jorge Ventura today about this investigative work and the documentaries, but also about what he's been seeing on the southern border and in the Democrat-run city of El Paso when it comes to this controversy around busing migrants to the interior of the country. Jorge Ventura, welcome to Undivided. Where do we find you today? Are you getting a break?
Yeah, finally getting a break. I'm in Dallas, Texas, just getting a little break in the city. Then we'll probably be back at the border looking at Eagle Pass, which is right now one of the deadliest areas because of the Rio Grande River right now.
For people who aren't familiar with your work, give them a little Cliff Notes version of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm an investigative reporter for the Daily Caller. I do a lot of the on-the-ground reporting. Some of the people might have already discovered me in 2020. I was an intern at the time with the Daily Caller, but I covered the riots. So I was down in CHOP in Seattle, a little bit of everywhere, covering the riots, the civil unrest of 2020. And then after that, beginning of 2021, started focusing on the border, started focusing on the human trafficking, following the drugs kind of inside the United States. We started covering fentanyl deaths. And kind of in the midst of covering the border, I stumbled on this kind of the illegal marijuana operations happening in California, and it's tied to cartels and all that stuff. So it's kind of it's been a fun adventure so far, but lately we've been really heavy on the border so far.
Yeah, and you were helped put out a documentary, which we played a trailer from before we put you on. Can you give people a sense of what that kind of documentary takes them through and how they can watch it?
Yeah, so that one is Narcofornia. You can watch it on narcofornia.com or just head to the dailycaller.com. That's my second investigative documentary that we did, focused on the illegal grow operations in California. So for folks who don't know, marijuana is obviously legal in California, but in that, cartels have kind of found this loophole in the black market and have taken over, and its connection to water theft, human trafficking, the violence it's becoming a huge problem. And for folks who don't know, actually, the legal marijuana side in California is actually almost set to fail because of the black market. So there's some interesting stories developing there. I think people will be really fascinated in that subject. One thing that I always get when I talk about the illegal marijuana is people think that it's just Cheech and Chong smoking pot, just smoking joints, listening to Bob Marley. And I think they'll be surprised when they see it's a more criminal aspect connected to it.
Well, yeah, whenever you get like the cartel involved and drug smugglers, like you said, human trafficking, all these issues that come around with that. So if you think weed and think, well, no big deal, I highly recommend people watch and see that it is indeed a big deal, all these drugs that are coming up and the operations. You've been in El Paso lately, is that correct?
Yeah, we've been in El Paso for a week, just documenting the crisis here. And the reason we focus on El Paso is Border Patrol, he actually ran out of capacity at the processing center. So usually when this happens, Border Patrol then look at NGOs and look at local shelters in the area to put migrants there, to be housed and to be, supplied with any basic needs that they need. But those shelters also ran out of capacity. So one of the very first times I think covering the border, we actually saw migrants just literally released to the streets and then having to actually sleep on the street. So here in downtown El Paso, if you just drive around the Greyhound bus station, you'll see hundreds of Venezuelans sleeping, women, children. I interviewed one Venezuelan mother that was already on her third night. She had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old that she was finding actually blankets for while we were doing the interview. Another mother had a 10-month baby, and she was also digging through clothes. And you kind of really got to see the border crisis and another aspect of seeing how these people are affected and how a town, even as big as El Paso is a pretty big city, even they don't have the resources to deal with this area. But it didn't get the kind of I would say outrage from the mainstream that the Martha Vineyard episode had.
And let's talk about that a little bit. And I will say the video is just stunning, like you said, of these like donated clothes that they're just digging through, out on the streets for several nights. The mayor of El Paso is a Democrat. How does he feel about the controversy? Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott, as Republicans, they've been getting a lot of hell from the mainstream media for busing or flying migrants to sanctuary areas. What does the Democratic mayor of El Paso think about all of that?
Well, what's interesting is that, he has his own busing program. The city actually had to spend millions in charter buses to get the contracts done. Now, what he says is his program is different because he's in active communication with New York City. So when the migrants do arrive, there is going to be people from shelters and resources there already ready. So he says, hey, we're different from Abbott because we actually have active communications and these migrants will be taken care of. But at the end of the day, the city is stuck with the bill. Now, also what the mayor said is these migrants, they're not coming to El Paso, right? They're just traveling through El Paso. So he views this as a federal problem and that he is hoping the Biden administration does reimburse the city for them having to spend millions of dollars in these charter buses to New York City. So that's kind of an interesting angle as well, because you have a Democrat city literally doing what Governor DeSantis, and Abbott are doing, but it just hasn't got that criticism from the media.
To catch my full interview with Jorge Ventura about the situation unfolding at the southern border, become an Undivided subscriber for $5 a month on Patreon or Locals. That's patreon.com/undivided, or become a contributor on my Locals community, brandykruse.locals.com.